Jamie. Do we call you Jamie or James?
Jamie,
Okay,
I'll
thank
switch
you.
that, so it won't be confusing.
You can call me Pam, not Pamela.
You should change your name on the heading.
I know, I'm
That's
just
what I'm doing.
realizing, I've been having a hard time with some of my names here. Sometimes they allow you to do it and sometimes they don't.
I went by my middle name for years. F. Stephen was my legal signature, and after 9/11, it's become such a pain. I had to change everything. And now I don't know what, I have all sorts of stuff coming out. I don't know what I'm supposed to sign or what name it's under. Or,
You can call me Mr. Richard Bourbonnais.
there you go.
Mr. Okay.
Rich, I've heard people call you lots of things.
Oh,
All right, it's 7 o'clock. We ready to begin? You all set, Jay?
We are all set, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, good evening. This is the regular planned meeting of the South Kingstown Planning Board. The date is October 27th. The time is 7 PM. Our first item of business is roll call. Pam, would you like to take care of that, please?
I would love to. Susan Axelrod,
Here.
Peter DiStefano,
Here.
Joe Murphy,
Here.
Maria Mack,
Here.
Stephen DeMasi,
Here.
and Pam Rubinoff here. And then we have staff. We have Jamie Rabbit,
Present?
Jay Parker.
Here.
We have Brian Wagner,
Here.
Rich Bourbonnais,
I'm here.
and Amy Goines, Special Legal Counsel.
Here.
Okay, thank you. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. That includes the minutes from September 8th work session, the minutes from September 15th special work session, the minutes from September 22nd regular session. We have a preliminary plan minor subdivision of Bolton minor subdivision. And then we had the manager's report, administrative officer for Despirito Blackbeard's unit number 7 approval and recording. I would like to remove the Bolton minor subdivision from the consent agenda. So if someone would like to, if there's no other changes,
I would like to remove the minutes from September the 8th.
okay,
I would make a motion, though, to approve the remaining items on the consent agenda.
okay, we have an approval from Maria. Do I have a second on that motion? Second from Pam. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
okay. What was the change on the minutes?
So on the September 8th minutes, for some reason, were much more abbreviated than what we generally see. For example, the first item, Rhode Island Care Concepts, there's nothing about discussion ensued relative to traffic, layout, and so on. And the same thing is for a couple of the other items. It just says discussion ensued. If I were a member of the public reading these, I would think that they were lacking. I think there should be at least something that says these items were discussed even in general terms and whether or not there was public comment. It's just not what we're used to in terms of the minutes. So I would ask that they be modified to reflect the discussion that occurred.
Okay. Is that something we can listen to the tapes and edit those minutes?
Mr. Chairman, just for clarity, if I may ask Maria. Maria, is there a specific section within the meeting minutes that you were concerned about?
Pretty much all of them. When you look at the other minutes, you'll see that just says discussion ensued, but in particular things, the first item in which we discussed ingress, egress, just again, in general terms, I think it should be stated the items that were discussed. It doesn't need to be in great detail, but, and you'll see a couple of other things were just discussion ensued. And that just seems to be a little brief compared to what we generally see on the minutes.
So Maria, I'm just wondering, given some of the challenge, staff and such, I'm just wondering if we could say just discussion ensued, instead of re-listening to the tapes. Is there a way
Yeah.
that we could just, for these, duly note it and then for the future, pay attention more?
Sure, and the other minutes are not problematic. It's just that they were very brief. I don't think anyone needs to even go back and listen to the tapes in any great detail, but for example, the Rhode Island Care Concept, we discussed traffic, we discussed ingress and egress. There were some comments from DPS. In the other items, again, just a very brief overview. It doesn't need to be in any detail, but it just, there are two other items that just say discussion ensued, and it's not as though we need to comment on every item, for example, on the PowerPoint that Rich presented, or in our discussion or deliberations on the details of making adjustments for the parking lots, but I think a sentence or two would be appropriate. Like I said, if I were a member of the public looking at these, I would think they were lacking, and that's not necessarily the case for the other minutes that we have in this packet or have had in the past. That's all.
Fair enough. Good point, because I actually missed that meeting and it seemed a little,
Yeah, we did have
Narrow.
quite a conversation on the parking and the landscaping and the egress. So,
We just want to show that we are deliberate and considerate and thorough in our conversations.
okay, so staff, somebody can make those changes based on what we said, we just
So
discussed.
yeah, my understanding is to highlight, not to do it as a transcript, but just to highlight subject matter. If
Sure.
circulation was discussed, mention circulation was discussed, traffic was discussed, parking was discussed.
Mhm.
That
Yes,
what you're looking for, Maria?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next item on our agenda was the preliminary plan for the minor subdivision, the Bolton minor subdivision. And on page 4 of the staff notes, they had a conditions of approval, and staff would like to clarify, and I think Jamie had something he wanted to add in the blank on number 8.
If I could, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead, Jim.
I did notice this typo, and I apologize. There's also one on the next item, next agenda item as well. Findings of fact. References Benefit Road, that should be Stony Fort Road.
Okay,
Jay, can you scroll down the 8?
all right, Jamie, you had some comments
So,
you
Mr.
wanted
Chairman,
to
just
add?
on, yeah, just on clarity on this one, on number 8, any other conditions deemed necessary by the planning board in consideration of the application. The 2-lot subdivision is in front of an existing parcel that in essence is landlocked, that has a driveway running through one of the proposed lots. It would be staff's recommendation that when the lot is prior to recording, that a deed be prepared that references a clear easement with rights to pass and repass, and maintain utilities. So rights to repass, maintain the driveway, improve the driveway, maintain and install utilities across the lot that will be developed in front of it. This is kind of an attempt to be proactive with a future owner of that lot with regards to what rights the owner behind it or to the South would have over it. I don't know if Amy has any standard language that she would recommend.
And Mr. Chair, Michael Fontaine, the surveyor and the representative for the applicant, has his hand raised. If you would like. it.
Okay, you want to bring him in?
Sure. Mike, are you here?
Yep. Yep, I am, Jay.
Michael, can you just state your name for the record, please?
Sure. It's, Michael A. Fontaine, the surveyor that worked on this project. My question is, you can't really grant yourself an easement. The people that live in the rear own both lots. So you really can't grant yourself an easement right now. In the future, when they get ready, if they decide that they are going to sell the lot, then yeah, absolutely, we'd have to put an easement in place there to access the lot in the back. But honestly, at this point, they have no desire to try to sell that remaining portion off. So all they're trying to do is just create that single lot for their son and the one acre lot exactly, Jay. So again, I agree that in the future, if they decide to sell the lot, they're going to need an easement in place. But at this point in time, since they own both lots, you really can't grant yourself an easement because you own the lots. I'm not sure if that clarifies that for you.
Amy, are you in agreement with that?
This is Amy. Yes, I am in agreement with that. I would recommend instead of just indicate something to the effect of what Mr. Fontaine said, that in the event of future sale, an easement would be required.
Okay,
Put a note on the plans referencing that driveway has rights to pass and repass. Again, it's two parcels.
Owned by the same people.
All right.
It's the same, it's held in the same ownership.
Well, could we also add, in addition to Amy's suggestion, add language to, in the event of future sales, the rights to the driveway would be either enacted or somehow described in any future transaction.
I think, this is Amy, I think stating that an easement would be required in the event of future sale covers it.
okay.
I also had a question that perhaps Jay would be able to answer, or somebody that was at the TRC. Was there any discussion of any future development of the remaining parcel, or any conversation saying that there would be no further subdivision? Just because we have witnessed quite a bit of piecemeal or incremental type subdivisions in recent past. So wondering if that was part of any conversation that was had.
No, this is Jay. No, that discussion didn't really happen. I completely understand what you're saying. And that concern didn't really jump out at me, and I don't believe anyone else really brought it up for discussion either.
Well, usually when it's a family, a subdivision involving family, I don't think that's as much of concern to the, well, to myself, maybe not to everybody, but certainly the point about the rights of access, because 10 or 15 years down the road, if one of the owners passes away and that lot is resold, and it becomes an issue that for that right away. So.
And in the TRC, I didn't note it in the the package, but was there any discussion about a common driveway? Just noting that there's a lot of different curb cuts with the 3 areas on the north side, and then 1, 2, 4, this one will be 4 on the south side. I wasn't sure. I know in the
So-
past, we've talked about some of those issues.
Yeah, so I should probably clarify, this plan is just a layout plan as if the property were to be developed, posts after the subdivision goes through. There's no, as I understand it, there's no intent to develop parcel B, which is this parcel. It's this parcel that is that would be created for development in the near future. So the likelihood of having a shared driveway, this property, I think Pam, this plan might have made it seem like these two were,
Right.
yeah. And that, I believe if Mike's still on, Mike explained it to me that this parcel B, this was just a representation of showing that it could support development.
Yeah, this is Mike. Yeah, we did that initially strictly for subdivision suitability, just so that we could do the subdivision suitability. So, and again, they have no intentions of developing the remainder of that lot at this time. At this point, they just want to create the one lot for their son.
So Maria's point about further subdivision is a good question, because it's at this point, but we don't know what will happen in the future. And again, it's a big enough lot to be able to do that, but
Right.
if there are any stipulations, we should probably put it now as opposed to in the future. But I see what you're saying. If you're not developing the 2 lots right now, a joint driveway might not make sense, but just thinking about the future.
Well, the applicants asked for 2 lots, so what's the board's?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Maria, did you,
I just think we need to be careful because it has happened to us time and time again where, 2 or 3 lots are cut out of a parcel. Granted, this is not a 30-acre parcel. It's only a minor subdivision at this point. But should somebody come back in the future and then try to piecemeal the rest of the plan, it's generally not well designed. I understand, Steve, your thoughts relative to the fact that it is within a family. So the hope is that it will remain as such, but I thought it necessary to at least ask the question. But I'm fine with it for now. I just want people to be aware of that going forward.
okay.
All right, are they down here? You can ask.
Were there any other questions from board members? Okay, we have a motion, a draft motion prepared. Would somebody like to make that motion with the amendments that were made this evening?
I'll make it. The South Kingstown Planning Board hereby grants preliminary plan approval to the Boynton Minor Subdivision, a 2-lot minor subdivision for single-family development located on Stony Fort Road. Patricia and William Boynton, applicant owner. This approval is based upon plan set entitled Preliminary Boynton Minor Subdivision Lot, Geometry AP 17, Lot 28, Stony Fort Road, South Kingstown, Rhode Island, prepared for Patricia and William Boynton, sheet 2 of 2, dated July 14, 2020, prepared by Michael A. Fontaine, PLS, 598 Green Hill Beach Road, South Kingstown, 02879. This approval is based on the following findings of fact and conditions of approval. Findings of fact, A through J as amended, which is F, changed to Stony Fort. Conditions of approval, 1 through 8 as amended, with 8 being that an easement would be required in the event of a future sale.
We have a motion from Maria. Do we have a second?
Second,
Second from Pam. Okay. Discussion? Okay, Pam, would you take the vote, please?
Steve Demasi,
Aye.
Maria Mack,
Aye.
Joe Murphy,
Aye.
Peter DiStefano,
Aye.
Susan Axelrod, and Pam Rubinoff. Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, next item on our agenda was the public hearing for the,
Wait, Steve,
yes,
sorry, before you move on, last night, the town council appointed a new member for the planning board. And I
Yeah.
see that he's out in the audience. Can he be brought in as a panel member for tonight's meeting?
okay. What was his name?
It's Paul Jordan.
Okay,
He would still be limited to participating as a member of the public until he's sworn in, though, correct?
I
Unless
was
that's
gonna be
happened.
my first question, whether he had. Hi, Paul.
Hello.
Have you had a
Hi,
chance
Paul.
to be sworn in?
No, I haven't. I'd be happy to just listen tonight and learn a little bit.
Okay. Very good. Well, we welcome you aboard and we're glad to have you.
Thank you.
Welcome,
Happy to
Paul.
be here.
We just won't let you vote tonight.
No, thank you.
It's, okay, so the next item on our agenda was the public hearing for the proposed amendment to the subdivision and land development regulations regarding the technical review committee. I believe we had some discussion on that. I don't know if any board members had anything further to say on that.
Since it's, this is Amy, since it's the public hearing, why don't we just briefly reiterate the issue?
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
Mr. Flanders is in the audience and has his hand raised. Would you like me to let it? bring him?
sure.
Thank you. Mr. Flanders, you can unmute yourself, I believe. By request.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think Amy, just for clarity, you were looking for, staff is more than willing to do it. It's just a brief statement as part of the public hearing, stating what the public hearing is for, if I may,
Correct,
Mr. Chairman.
correct.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Just under agenda item F1, subject of the public hearing is a proposed amendment to the subdivision and land development regulations associated with the Technical Review Committee. Consideration of the proposed amendment to Article 11, Section B.2, Administration of the Regulations and Amendments, Technical Review Committee membership of the subdivision and land development regulations to formally include a duty member of the Conservation Commission to the membership of the Technical Review Committee, referred to as the TRC. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. David, were you able to unmute yourself? Did you have any comments?
Jay, if David's on a cell phone, it's *6 to unmute.
Yes, it is *6 to unmute, but I believe he's connected on his, actually, I'm not sure if he's connected on his phone, his smartphone or not.
Oh, waiting, was there anybody in the audience that had the hand raised? Jay? Anybody else?
I don't see anyone else with their hand raised.
Well, it seems David's having some technical problems. I think as long as we're going to vote in the affirmative, I don't think he would have a problem if we continue. Is there any further discussion on, oh, actually, we have a public hearing open, so we'll need to close the public hearing.
Yes, I would be happy to make the motion to close the public hearing unless there is someone who is interested in speaking. We haven't seen any raised hands, correct?
Okay, we have a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay. Pam?
Okay, we'll take
Earn your money tonight.
a Susan Axelrod.
Aye.
Peter DiStefano,
Aye.
Joe Murphy,
Aye.
Maria Mack,
Aye.
Steve Damasi,
Aye.
Pam Rubinoff, aye.
Okay, motion passes. We have a draft motion prepared by staff. Somebody would like to make motion two?
Sure, I'll do that. The South Kingstown Planning Board hereby approves amendments to Article 11, Section 8.2 of the South Kingstown Subdivision and Land Development Regulations to formally include a duty member of the Conservation Commission to the membership of the South Kingstown Technical Review Committee. The Planning Board also hereby approves the companion amendments to the Planning Board bylaws affecting, I should say, the same.
I'll second that.
We have a second motion by Maria and a second by Joe. Back to Pam again. If there's no discussion, we'll move to the vote.
Steve Damasi,
Aye.
Maria Mack,
Aye.
Joe Murphy,
Aye.
Peter DiStefano,
Aye.
Susan Axelrod,
Aye.
Pam Rubinoff, aye.
Okay, the motion passes, and David, your technical review committee now welcomes the Conservation Committee as a voting member. So
Thank you,
worked hard for that,
David. We
so
appreciate you and your team.
Yay, you're legitimate.
So, okay, next item on our agenda is preliminary plan major land development for Tower Hill Landings Annex. Is there anyone representing the applicant?
Yeah, one second, Mr. Chairman, while I bring in Mr. Kenyon, Mr. Cabral, Mr. Johnson, and Mr. Bishu. Mr. Kenyon, I have Russ Johnson, Chris Bishu, and Mr. Steve Cabral. Is that the entirety of the team?
I believe that's it, Jay.
Very good, thanks.
Okay, Mr. Kenyon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. I'm John Kenyon, attorney for the applicant, Tower Hill Landings Annex LLC. We're here tonight for the preliminary plan public hearing for the major land development project. The property is 1.23 acres in size, and it's partially zoned commercial neighborhood and partially zoned R10. It's also in the Kingstown Road Special Management District. The applicant received master plan approval for 11 dwelling units and 2 buildings located at the front of the lot. The master plan approval was dated June 24th, 2020, and it contains several findings of facts and conditions of approval. It also granted waivers from the perimeter landscaping requirements for the parking lot and front setback and distance between building requirements for multifamily land development projects. Just prior to the master plan decision, the applicant purchased the property. Since the master plan decision, the applicant received special use permits to allow more than 3 unrelated persons to live together. They also received confirmation that the water and sewer is available and that the Union Fire District had no objection with the plans. The Community Housing Land Trust has agreed to act as a monitoring agent for the LMI units. The applicant applied to RIDM for wetlands and stormwater permits, but has not received approvals at this time. They also submitted building design plans along with some traffic information. With me tonight is Steve Cabral from Crossman Engineering, along with Chris Bichio, who's one of the owners, and Russ Johnson, who's the manager. And I was going to have Steve testify to the proposed plans and any changes and what's happened since master plan approval.
Mr. Kenyon, could you just identify the waivers that the applicant is requesting?
So there are 3 waivers. One of them is from the perimeter landscape requirements because the parking lots on the this property and the adjacent lot are joining together. So normally there would have to be perimeter landscaping in that area. Also, for a multi-household land development project, there's a requirement of a 100-foot setback from the public right-of-way for any building. And this is in the Kingstown Road Special Management District that wants the developers to site the buildings closer to the road. So we're requesting a waiver from that. And there's also a waiver from the distance between buildings because in a multi-household land development project, 50 feet is required.
There's also one more waiver, I believe, associated with the permits required to be had at preliminary plan.
Yes, so we're asking for a waiver from the requirement that the RIDM wastewater and wetland permits be received prior to preliminary plan. We're asking that they be made a condition of approval for final.
Thank you.
So Steve, do you want to go ahead and explain the proposed plans and any changes and developments since master plan?
Yes, please.
Oh, yes. Oh, and one comment is one of the permit waivers is also the DOT permit. To see preliminary approval prior to receiving the DOT permit.
Who's speaking, please?
Oh, Steve Cabral with Crossman
Okay.
Engineering.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
thank you.
Oh, Jay, could we go to sheet C, I believe it's sheet C3, which has
Yes,
the aerial photographs.
Mr. Cabral, I attempted to give you remote control. If you want to use your mouse and see if you can take over my screen, you may have the ability.
Okay, whoops.
Okay, if it's easier, I can take over.
Let's see. Nope, I'm just a little slow, but I get there. My mouse is finicky. Now I'm just trying to zoom in on this one. Yeah, maybe if you do it, Jay. My mouse isn't help. There you go. Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, essentially, the overall layout is unchanged since the master plan approval. So what I'll do is, in case there are any new members, I'll just give you a very quick overview. The image on the left represents the pre-existing conditions back before the former restaurant and residential buildings were demolished. But on the left, it shows in an outline of yellow the existing parcel, which is about 1.2 acres in size. There was previously the Cantina Twist restaurant and 2 residential houses that were rented. There's a small wetland in the far back corner to the left. North is pointing to the left, so the wetlands is in the northeast corner. The wetlands is actually on the adjacent land, but the regulatory buffers extend onto the site. The underlying soils are pretty much a silty, loamy soil, and the water table is relatively shallow throughout the site. There are no historic properties on the project. We are in the Saugatucket River watershed, which does have a TMDL for fecal coliform. So our drainage design did take that into consideration. The lot is zoned mostly CN, and a small portion of the site is in the R10 district. We, as it was mentioned, we do have access to public water, public sewer. Now, if we look at the right side, that's an image of the new apartment buildings and the new parking area. And on that plan, you see that there are essentially two buildings. And on the two buildings, we have a total of 11 apartment units with 40 bedrooms. Building 1 is the building on the left. That building is a 2-story building. It has 4 4-bedroom units and 2 2-bedroom units. Building 2 is the one on the right. That one has 5 units. All of those units are 4 bedrooms. And if you wanted to see the floor plan, you could go to sheet C5 on the layout plan. Oops. Yeah, in the upper left corner, it provides the overall floor plans for building 1, building 2. The upper diagram is the first floor footprints, and the bottom would be the second floor. One thing I'd like to point out in regards to the drainage design, and Jay, if you don't mind, if we go back to the aerial photo plan, that may be easier for everyone to follow. Yeah, one of the benefits of this site is that in regards to environmental issues, drainage issues, and traffic, where we're making improvements in all of those aspects. For example, under the existing conditions, well, the pre-existing conditions, if we look at the footprint of the rooftop and the pavement, there was 32,264 square feet of impervious surface. And all of that impervious surface drained undeterred, untreated, directly into the wetland and into the back. Now, if we look at the right, under our future conditions, for the parking lot and rooftop, we have a total of 32,962 square feet of coverage, which does represent a 698 square feet of impervious coverage increase. But of that 32,962, 16,703 square feet will be the porous pavement as recommended by the planning board. So if we look at pre-existing to future conditions, we actually have a net decrease of 16,000 square feet of impervious surfaces. And in addition to that decrease in impervious, under the proposed conditions, in the back left corner, we're proposing a sand filter. And the reason for that sand filter is address the fact that we are in the TMDL watershed, and we wanted to treat fully the water quality storm of the site. Now, one thing I would like to point out, which is a change from the original submission, Jay, if you could go to the grading and drainage plan. Yep, this is the one. When we first were preparing the master plan, we had anticipated that in order to mitigate the runoff from the site, we would need an underground storage system. So as you see, just to the rear of building 1, we were originally proposing a series of solid underground pipes. But once we converted the 100% of the parking lot to porous pavement, and after discussing the design with DEM, the final design actually does not have those underground pipes, but we've slightly expanded the sand filter, and the thickness of the permeable pavement has been slightly increased. And when it comes to the DEM status, we have received a couple of comments from them, but they were minor, and we've addressed them and we resubmitted to DEM. The 2 comments that DEM requested were, one, they asked that we add a DORG station. Basically, it's a stand where there would be plastic bags, and I didn't mention this to John yet, little plastic bags and a little trash disposal for, a DORG pickup area. And in our permeable pavement thickness, they requested that we add a 3-inch pea stone layer just above the sand. So we did add the 3-inch pea stone layer. And because of that, we just raised the grade slightly, just so that we would have the required minimum clearance from the bottom of the permeable pavement to the seasonal high water table. So actually, the DEM comments I thought were very positive. And when it comes to DOT, I did talk to DOT as recently as 4 o'clock today. And they were pleased with the project for many reasons. One is they recognized, after discussing the Dan's Place restaurant, which was previously permitted, that there'll be less traffic. And also that we're going to close the existing driveway that's on the site today, and we'll be sharing the Rollins Drive access with the adjacent Tower Hill landings. And last but not least, another reason they were excited about the project is that we'll be providing a grass strip of about 10 to 15 feet from the pavement curb line that we'll be building along Kingstown Road to the property line. And what DOT said they plan on doing with that in the future is that when funds become available, and as they begin looking at drainage improvements along Kingstown Road, they're considering on their own to install shallow bioswales in that new grassed area that we're creating. Currently, it's all impervious, all pavement as a wide open driveway, and DOT sees this as an opportunity that they can further improve the stormwater quality from Kingstown Road. No, that's not something they have funding for. It's just something that they have planned for in the future. The only plan change that DOT requested that we make is that we identify, of course, all the property lines for the site. They just asked that we identify the property line along Kingstown Road as the state highway right-of-way limit, but there are no physical changes to the plan itself. Okay. The next thing I'd like to discuss is that based upon one of the conditions of the master plan, we reviewed the trip generation and the potential traffic impact of the proposed development. And first of all, when it comes to analyzing the future traffic generated from the 11 units, we use the standard ITE, Institute of Traffic Engineers trip generation handbook. And typically, there's an AM and a PM peak hour. And typically that peak hour occurs within a 2-hour window during the morning and the evening. And based upon the ITE data, the peak AM hour, believe it or not, has 5 trips exiting, the 5 trips total for this site during the AM period, and 6 trips during the PM period. Now, my first impression was that seems low, but that's based upon a number of trips per unit. And those trips per unit, the ITE uses for the AM is 0.46 trips per unit, and for the PM, 0.56 trips per unit during the peak hour. So what we did, we went a step further and we counted all of the traffic that's coming out of Rollins Drive during the morning and the evening peak. Now, we also know that the number of units in Tower Hill Landings is 132. So when we took the actual number of trips in the morning and the PM peak and divided that by the number of units, we found that the actual trip generation unit is 0.39, we'll say 0.4 trips per unit in the morning and 0.53 trips per unit in the evening. And those were very close. Actually, they were slightly less than the numbers that we had used for the new development, which was 0.46 to 0.56. Now, the primary point I want to make is when we compare the previously approved Dan's Place, the PM peak hour traffic, we had originally forecasted 78 trips during the evening peak hour. And with the apartment proposal, we're significantly reducing that 78 down to 6. So essentially, we're reducing the traffic from a restaurant use to the apartment use essentially by a factor of 10. The next step we took in regards to traffic is we analyzed all of the movements during the morning and evening, exiting and entering at the intersection of Rollins Drive and Route 108. We found that we determined the level of service, which represents the amount of delay of each of the turning movements. And the intersection actually performs very well today. In the morning peak, the existing level of service is level of service B for Rollins Drive and level of service A for southbound and northbound directions for Kingstown Road. And for the PM peak under existing conditions, the level of service was C for Rollins and level of service A for Kingstown Road north and southbound. When we superimposed the new traffic onto the existing traffic of Rollins Drive, we found that essentially the increase in traffic caused no change in the level of service. So in the end, we were able to conclude that the new 11 units will not cause a degradation in the existing traffic operation of the Rollins Drive, Kingstown Road intersection. And actually, it'll be much better as opposed to having the Dan's Place restaurant there. Also, one of the conditions of the master plan approval was to evaluate the capacity of the 6-inch lateral service line for the sewer. And we did submit that to John Schock, and he accepted our analysis. Basically, the analysis showed that the capacity of a 6-inch sewer lateral more than exceeds the anticipated sewer flow from the new development. Okay, the other things I'd like to address would be in our package, in the plans, and also with separate documents, we provide a detailed soil erosion and sediment control plan. And what that plan does is it identifies all of the steps the contractor needs to take during construction so that all of the silt and erosion can be controlled on site to ensure that there's no negative impacts on the adjacent wetlands. And in our packet, we've also included the long-term operation and maintenance plan for the proposed drainage system. And that long-term O&M plan identifies all of the maintenance measures that are required for the sand filter in the rear, as well as the permeable pavement. And basically, it outlines a step-by-step process of routine inspections, and depending upon the inspections, it identifies all of the routine maintenance measures that needs to be taken. And while this screen is up, I did mention that based upon the permeable pavement thickness, we didn't need the underground storage areas. But one item that we did include is that in addition to having the permeable pavement, all of the catch basins that collect any excess runoff from the pavement will actually be routed through a storm scepter, basically an oil water quality chamber that also has a swirl mechanism to help remove any sand and silts that do get washed through the drainage system and any floatables that happen to be on the pavement. Now those are essentially the highlights of the project. But as I said in the beginning, this project does create a significant improvement to the environmental conditions in regards to stormwater, water quality, and significant benefits to traffic by eliminating a wide open curb cut and eliminating the traffic flow that used to exist and would have existed from the restaurant use. So thank you all.
Okay, any board members have any questions for the engineer? Okay. Let me just check if anybody in the public has any questions for the engineer. Please raise your hand.
I actually have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Mr.
Sorry.
Cabral, thank you for your presentation. I think this is a good example that demonstrates the value of utilizing green infrastructure through the pervious pavement and the versus gray infrastructure. The elimination of the underground tanks is certainly a plus, and the fact that you have a good O&M plan in place will be very important going forward. I did have some questions about the traffic study. We received today some additional information from Jay about the traffic study, which I don't have in front of me because it's in the email. But you made some comparisons to the restaurant, but I think it's of importance that we have an accurate historical record of that road itself and the level of service on the road. You may recall that at the master plan stage, I had mentioned that when the South Winds project came about and they did an analysis of the level of service along Kingstown Road, it was something more like D. And I realized that your peak hours are, was it 7 to 8:30? But as you know, this is a major corridor to and from the university. And other than those students who are madly rushing to the not well-liked 8 a.m. classes, quite a bit of traffic is present along that road, and it's backed up, particularly, I would say, until probably 10:30. And although you're putting in 11 units may not have a direct impact on that per se, I think it's important that we are as accurate as possible because this area seems to be very popular as far as future developments that have been or will be submitted. So I would like to hear more from you about how you incorporate what's happening with the traffic to and from URI into this historical record so that it's as accurate as possible.
Okay, one item that we looked at is, fortunately, we performed a traffic study for the former dance place. So we actually had traffic counts during 2015 along the same corridor at the same location. And what we found was the northbound traffic in 2015. Now this is during the PM hour. I don't have the AM hour at my fingertips. Was 388 vehicles northbound. And because of the virus, we were assuming that we would find that the traffic was less. But northbound, we actually found that the peak hour was 462. So there are actually 74 more vehicles today than in 2015. That was a bit of a surprise. But in the southbound, it was the opposite. We had 559 southbound and only 485 southbound. Now, when it comes to the overall corridor, now our analysis takes place at the intersection of Rollins and Kingston, where there is a free flow of movement. Now, at the intersection at 138, of course, the level of services will not be certainly as good because 108 comes to essentially a stop condition, a signalized light. And our analysis at Rollins is a unsignalized, which indicates that Route 108 has free flow of movement. Essentially, Route 108 controls. So the only true leg that's going to be impacted will be the Rollins Drive at our site. What we can say is that because the increase in trips is only 5 in the morning and 6 in the evening, no matter what the traffic is on 108, we're confident that the impact on the level of service will be negligible. But you are correct that if there is a bottleneck at the signalized intersection, that bottleneck is still going to remain. And I will state that our study was limited to our access point. We did not extend the study further up to 108. But knowing that the level of increase is so small, we're confident by saying that there will not be an impact. And one other thing I'd like to point out is one of the benefits of this site And one of the reasons that we've added a sidewalk along the frontage of Route 108 is that there is a bus stop at Rollins Drive. And we certainly would like to believe that some of these students would actually utilize, the bus. Now, another item I'd like to point out is that at Rollins Drive in the morning, let's see, we had originally assumed that we would have a significant percentage of the traffic taking a right turn heading towards URI. But if you would look at page 2 of our traffic counts, you see that it was almost evenly split between heading left and right. So that seems to indicate that the residents must be a very good mix between students as well as, non-students, because the traffic is certainly split. And even in the PM, if we look at the traffic entering and leaving Rollins Drive, it's the same. The split seems to be pretty much even. So I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Was that what you just referred to as the split? That was for the, you're talking about the peak hour, correct?
Yes, during the peak hour.
Which is, I don't have it in front of me, 7 to 8:30?
Let's see. Essentially, yes. Yep.
Yes, which
What
my
we found-
concern was that it doesn't accurately reflect what is truly the peak hour because of the traffic to and from the university, because as I said, not many people like to sign up for those 8 a.m. classes.
Steve, I have a question for staff, but it's relative to the engineer's discussion.
Go ahead, Joe.
And I think, Rich, I think this goes to you. On its face, I don't have any concern relative to the waiver for granting approval, even though the permits haven't been accepted, doing it as a condition of approval. But before I do that, I would just want to hear from you that you believe that it will either be approved by DEM as shown or without substantial modifications. And then second, that us providing a waiver would not provide you any problems or inefficiencies in your future review.
I'm not worried that substantial modifications will be required, particularly because there's still room on this site to expand maybe the sand filter or something like that, should that come up. Like the only thing I could see is that, and it doesn't sound like this is happening, but DEM could say, I don't know if Mr. Cabral, are you treating 50% of the redevelopment area or something like that for water quality, or are you doing 100%?
One of the benefits is because of the porous pavement, that alone covers all of the new
100%.
parking lot. And the rooftop is all going into the sand filter. So,
And I'm going to assume that it's decreasing peak flow on, I'm going to say peak flow, but also runoff and volume. But so I think the answer to your question, short answer, Joe, is that it doesn't appear as though volume would be a problem, which would cause maybe to adjust parking or something like that. But there's even space should that even be a case. So I would say no, the DEM is not going to have any conditions. And are we looking to get a PAP on this from DOT?
yes, we did. Yes, we did file for a PAP, and we did get a couple of comments from them. But the only plan change, as I mentioned, was just identifying the front property line as the state right-of-way line. There were no plan changes were requested.
Right. So no plan changes are going to happen with DOT because you're not discharging any volume or flow to their drainage, and you're not. You're actually reducing and getting rid of a curb cut, which is a real bad curb cut, by the way. It's a very long, wide open free for all, and that's all going away. So DOT's, I'm assuming, is going to be very, very pleased with that. So I can't see any plan changes would happen with state agencies.
Yes,
Um,
and,
could I ask
and
a
I,
question?
and I agree because I've talked to both of the agencies and we've gotten positive feedback. Oh, if I may go back to the traffic, when I look at the actual counts in the morning of people leaving Rollins Drive, I recognize the vice chair's comment about traffic on 108 may be higher later in the morning. But when I look at the actual trends of people leaving the apartment complex, at 7:30 during a 15-minute period, we have 12 vehicles leaving. At 8 o'clock during a 15-minute period, we have 9 cars leaving. And after 8:15, the number of cars leaving actually drops from 4 during a 15-minute period. And then for the 8:45, it drops down to 6. So there does appear to be a peak during, during the 7:30 to 8:30 period. I mean, we could certainly count additional hours, but I'm confident it's not going to impact the level of service at our intersection.
Yeah, Maria, this, what the study tries to do, it looks at the peak for this development. So what the numbers are showing are that the numbers of cars leaving, coming and going, I guess, at Rollins is at its highest during this particular hour. And it's kind of a funky area. It's 7:30 to 8:15 or 8:30, I guess. So during that period, we can expect peak volume. And so what it does is it then says, okay, now what's happening on Kingstown Road at that point to call it and to get a level of service at this development's peak period. So it doesn't look at the peak period of the roadway. It looks at the peak period of the development is what I'm trying to say.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Just for the record, Peter DiStefano left the meeting at 7:50 due to illness. So note that in the record. And Susan, you have a question?
I do. Hi, Mr. Cabral. Could you repeat what you had said about the potential for bioswales being installed along the curb line there?
Okay, yes. Yeah, one of the discussions I had with the state DOT, and actually this was a discussion I had with them this afternoon. They were actually very excited about this project for a couple of reasons. Like I said, closing the curb cut, the decrease in traffic. But the state DOT has a consent agreement with the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and DEM. And that consent decree requires that they look at all of the stormwater discharges from critical watersheds and to incorporate water quality improvements wherever feasible. And this corridor of the Saugatucket watershed is in one of their, what they call the stormwater control plan area. And basically with the stormwater control plan, DOT looks at all of the state roadways within a given watershed, and they attempt to identify potential, what they call stormwater treatment units to improve the water quality of the highway runoff. They had originally looked at this property along the frontage, and they noticed that it was all paved, so they felt that there were no opportunities for them to build one of those stormwater treatment units on the property. When they received this physical alteration permit application, they realized that we'll be providing them with 10 to 15 feet of a lawn area from the back of the curb line to the property line. So what we're proposing is putting in concrete curbing at the edge of the pavement, and then we were going to loam and seed to the back of the state highway line, and of course, remove all the pavement. So DOT was saying that what they may do in the future is when funds are available, they may consider putting in a bioswale in that 10 to 15 feet area, so that some of the runoff from Kingstown Road as it comes down the hill, from the URI direction, they may be able to divert it into these bioswales just to help detain the water and get more infiltration on the site.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Cabral, will you or someone else on your team be able to relate how the landscape plan is affected or could be affected by the potential for installation of these swales?
Well, we intentionally have no shrubs or trees inside the state right of way. And so physically, there would only be grass area that would be disturbed. In one conversation with DOT was, they were concerned that we'll be putting in concrete curbing that they may have to remove. But then after discussing what they would be building, they realized they may only have to remove, say, a 6-foot strip. So it was agreed today that it's best to leave the concrete curbing in. So now, if you look at our landscape plan, you see that all the shrubbery is really against the building, which is on the building side of the sidewalk. So I don't envision that any of the shrubs or ornamental plants along the building would be impacted. If DOT doesn't build this for 15 to 20 years, the root structure of some of the street trees will certainly have extended into that area. But they feel as though if funding does become available, that they'd like to do this within, 1 or 2 years. So with 1 or 2 years, I don't believe the street tree root structure would be impacted. But again, 10 years from now, it certainly could be another story.
Thanks.
Did staff have any questions or concerns on the traffic or the landscaping?
Yep, Mr. Chairman, Jamie Rabbit, Planning Director. I have a couple based on some of the testimony tonight. I'll start first with landscaping. With regards to the proposed variety of street trees along Route 108, in essence, you're recommending a flowering tree that has a mature height of about 18 to 22 feet, averages 20 feet. Given the massing of the buildings, it'd be staff's recommendation that you put a more or a larger street tree in the variety of a Green Mountain Sugar Maple, which is Acer saturum. Matures at 40 to 50 feet, has a crown of 30 to 40 feet. The space you have there within your property and the right of way would accommodate that tree. The size of that tree would also help to break up the massing of the building. It would also be more consistent with the existing street canopy, both north and south of the site, which is of the maple variety. In addition, you're calling out interior to the parking lot. You have a group of October red maples, and you call out interior street tree landscaping, which is ZS, which I believe is Zelkova, but it's not in your landscape plant schedule. I don't have an issue with the Zelkova's interior to the lot. I just make a recommendation that on the easterly boundary of proposed parking lot, the northern side, you have the October glories, and then you have one island that is listed as, I believe, a Zelkova. Recommendation there would be to just continue those October glories, the red maples, to that island. So instead of having 7 in a row, in essence, you would have 8 in a row. Along with the landscaping in the northeast corner of the parking lot, you have a dumpster enclosure, which has a call out as a detail on the plans, but I could not find that detail on the plans, Mr. Cabral. So it'd be my recommendation if the commission was to move forward with the proposal that that dumpster enclosure would match the architecture of the building and style and form. You did mention in your traffic analysis that you were hoping that residents would use the bus stop, which is located to the south. You are proposing a sidewalk on your property running in a southerly direction along 108, but that dead ends at Rollins Drive. Was there any intent to continue that sidewalk to the bus stop? Because without that sidewalk, the residents would have to walk either in Route 108 or across the grass, which is fine for 9 months out of the year, but potentially not okay in the winter months. And then my last comment is just with regards to scale and massing of the buildings. Again, we have representative elevations of one of the buildings. Was it the intent to have the second or southern building to match that architecture? And then from a massing standpoint, did you consider flipping that building so the 1-story end would be on the southern side? So in essence, as you approach the site north to south, you would have a scaling of single floor to 2 floor, and then 2 floor back down to single floor. So again, we have Jay just put up, thank you, Jay. You just put up the proposed elevations for representation of what I believe both buildings would be. But you only have one representative elevation for a building. So those are the primary comments that I have, in addition to written comments included in staff review.
Yep, okay, I'll be glad to address them. Our landscape architect isn't here tonight, but I'm sure that if you have a preference for certain shrubs, or trees, we certainly have no issue with that. We recognize that each community has a preference, and we'll certainly accept your recommendations for the replacement of the trees. In regards to the massing of the building, I would have to leave that to the architect. I'm not sure if he's here tonight, but I'm sure that he had evaluated although maybe, I don't believe the architect is here, so I'd rather not pretend to be an architect and go beyond my specialty. Now, in regards to the sidewalk, at this time, we were proposing to extend it all the way to Rollins Drive. And we could certainly, discuss any other modifications with the owner of the landings.
Steve, we have no problem extending the sidewalk. We can do that to the bus stop, not a problem.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you, Chris.
I have some comments on the landscaping as well. I appreciate Jamie's comments. I think I agree with them. The plantings along the roadway, they need to be increased, particularly given the scale of the building, the mass and the scale of the building. You have boxwood listed as some of them. There is a boxwood blight that has been a problem all along the East Coast, so you need to find a substitute for that. In your planting schedule, you need to show the number of species that are being planted. So there should be another column that demonstrates the number. And Quonset cherry, also something that isn't generally used. They have weak wood and they tend to split. So finding a substitute for that would be an improvement. I also think you need to look at that space where you're asking for the waiver between the buildings. I believe it's gone from 25 to 10 feet. And you need to look at the plants in that area, some of which the rhododendrons for sure, the pieris can deal with some light shade, but looking at this, it is probably likely that they're going to be in an area of fairly dense shade, so you need to look at that planting material as well. And then just overall improving what you've got along the roadway, as Jamie suggested. It's got to be more substantial given the size of the buildings and the fact that this is something that, while we're not trying to buffer per se, more appropriate plantings would be helpful in the overall context.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just, Maria, if I can add to that, I absolutely in agreement. The cherry trees were the ones that I was recommending, the 4 that are in the front be changed to Green Mountain sugar maples. They are proposing an October glory in the southwest corner, closer to Rawlings Drive. You could perhaps mirror that on the northwest side of the building to help the massing and potentially add 1 or 2 more sugar maples. So they'd be spaced at approximately 35 to 40 feet apart. And that would in essence create an aerial hedge as they develop and grow in front of those buildings. Again, in a leaf off condition, they would help to mask the building with structure. But 5 months out of the year, they would have that kind of aerial hedge effect. With regards to the Green Mountain, the boxwoods, Maria, green velvet is a little less susceptible to the boxwood blight. That boxwood blight you're describing, I was a victim of that, but mostly dwarf English boxwoods. We had to take out about 15 at our house. And one of the nurseries I used previously lost about 4,000 of them. And they had to bury them on site. So
Yeah, exactly. People are-
concurrence with you that we have to be careful about the variety there.
Yeah, and
But
staying away.
I think your point,
Yeah.
yeah, looking at a little more understory landscaping associated with the tree canopy may be appropriate.
Yes, agreed.
Mr. Cabral, Mr.
Yes.
Cabral, this is Susan Axelrod. May I ask another question? On your artist's rendering of the building, you're showing a little bump out porch on the side. Is that accurate? Because it's not depicted here in the drawings. The next slide.
I think that's that might be an emergency exit or step, perhaps.
I can't really see it because our pictures are down that edge, but is there a little porch there that would be in the corridor between buildings?
Porch. Oh, it looks like that would be a canopy.
No.
at
On the far right edge, there's a little bumped out.
Oh, you know what? My screen doesn't show. Let me.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh, that looks almost like an emergency exit, right?
But that would conflict with the side.
If I could address that, it's Russ Johnson with the project. That is the second means of egress out of the building from the second floor. So that is what that is, a stairwell down that lets the 2 4-bedrooms on the second floor have a second means of egress out of the building.
Okay.
But the point that Susan's making is that if you're looking at it, the building on the north, that would be in the walkway between the 2 buildings.
Yes,
Well,
thank
there'll be
you.
walkways connecting that exit and also the exit in the connection between the 2-story and the 1-story building. There'll be, all the walkways are not represented on this elevation.
No, that's fine. But what we're saying is that 2-step or 3-step down would be, from your plan, it would fall in the walkway that goes between the 2 buildings. And it would be, I can't highlight it here, but.
Yeah, you're looking at building 1 on the right-hand side.
No, the building 1 on the left-hand side.
Yeah, it shows.
Building
shows the door.
southern entrance. Building 1 southern entrance. If you put that landing in, it would be
Falls
right
in the
in the
walkway.
middle of your sidewalk.
Oh, it would also could be a platform that would just go either way. It could be a ramp. It could be, it would be part of that walkway, sidewalk, whatever you like to call it.
So you would walk up it, then over it, and then down it?
It'll be a platform, yes. So you could just hit the platform and then either hit stairs or a ramp.
And this is where you have 10 feet in width?
Correct.
So if that,
I think,
a step coming out, Rich, is that going to be counted within that 10 feet, or is it got to be 10 feet from the edge of that?
I think that walkway ends up on the other side against the other building, and then that step down would step down onto the walkway. That's what I think happens. So the walkway gets slid over against the other building, the building number 2, because you don't have that on building number 2.
On the opposite end, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. These images show the foundation footprint, but certainly for the final, we'll add all of the details provided by the architect. I certainly understand the questions. And they're good ones. And in regards to all of the landscape comments, I'll certainly talk to our landscape architect and share all of the comments. I understand that, like I said, every community has different preferences. I did think she did a great job, but what your comments will make it even better. So they're certainly good comments.
Any more questions from board members? Was there anyone in the audience that had any comments? Please raise your hand if you do.
Mr. Chairman, I do not see any hands raised.
All right. Okay. What's the board's pleasure on this? We're going to need to see a revised landscape plan, or can we include those in final? What would
I
you like?
think we need to see a plan. There are so many issues with the plan that need to be resolved. I would certainly support a continuation of this item to our November meeting.
Okay. And Jamie, did you want a detail of the dumpster, or just you want to make the comment that it's got to match the?
Again, it would be beneficial to see that detail so the commission clearly understood what the architecture or screening associated with that dumpster is.
Yeah, in particular, the screening, because it does have to be landscape, correct?
It can be done with good architecture. It's screened from the street by the building. But if there was any development to the north, it would be clearly visible from the northern property.
Okay.
Yeah.
A couple of ways to address that, and I'm sure the applicant is qualified to address that issue.
Yeah. Well, I will say from the north, there is a stockade fence and then the row of evergreens at the property line. And then there'll be the dumpster enclosure.
Okay. And we're going to show on the plan that the sidewalk continues on to the bus stop.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else anybody wanted to add?
Can I ask one more question? Mr. Cabral, this is Susan Axelrod. Do I remember that most of the properties along this stretch of Kingstown Road don't have curbs out front? The grass sort of just runs up to the pavement on most of the properties. Am I remembering this correctly? And I think that I see cars periodically parked along Kingstown Road, just sort of pulled off onto the soft shoulder. And will there be something in front of this building to prevent residents from sort of parking along that shoulder on Kingstown Road as an easier access to their houses?
Yeah, to prevent that, we're proposing to have a 6-inch vertical concrete curbing all across the frontage.
Okay.
So that people cannot pull onto the grass.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing further from board members or staff, I think Maria started to make a motion for continuing this.
Yes, to our, I believe, November 24th. Is that the correct date? November
Steve,
meeting?
before we do that, I just, I'm hoping that either at this meeting or in the continuation, we can talk a little about lighting. Lighting looks a little scarce, and there also looks to be areas on the walkway that fall below substantially below 1 foot candle, as low as a tenth of a foot candle. So I don't know if we could, if we could talk about that during the next meeting, but maybe a
Yes.
little discussion on the lighting would be
Yes, okay. And what we'll do is on
in
the,
order.
and we'll also discuss the wall packs that may not be shown on the, oh no, it does indicate wall packs.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, is there anything along the walkways? Some of the walkways and some of the extremes of the parking lot fall quite dim.
Yeah, okay. We'll address that. One thing it doesn't show would be the existing lights at the existing apartment complex. So we'll further refine that so that you see all of the lights in the area. Now, one comment I have is everyone had, there were quite a few landscaping recommendations. Is it possible to get
Yes,
a list of those?
Mr. Chairman, staff will provide that to the applicant.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Mr. Kenyon, did you have anything further to add?
No, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to clarify on Joe's comment, specifically, because normally it's the opposite, it's concern about too much lighting. So I just want to be sure that I have it right, that the areas where there's lower foot candles and walkways, Joe, you want more lighting there?
You're muted, Joe. So am I. Oh, no.
John, what I'm looking for is that all walkways and paved areas that are subject to pedestrian traffic meet the requirements of the life safety code for lighting. So right now, our lighting does not necessarily go out to the ends of the walkway, and where it does go, it gets pretty low. So we just want to make sure that all paved areas meet the life safety code.
Okay, got it.
All set? All right, so
All set, Mr. Chairman.
we had a motion from Maria to continue this to our November 24th meeting. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Joe seconds it, and Pam, you take the roll call on that?
Certainly. Susan Axelrod,
Aye.
Joe Murphy,
Aye.
Maria Mack,
Aye.
Stephen Demasi,
Aye.
Pam Rubinoff, aye.
Okay, motion passes. We'll see you on November 24th.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you. Fucking idiots.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is the South Kingston Comprehensive Community Plan discussion and possible action on the draft that we've prepared. So staff have comments?
Mr. Chairman, we've had an opportunity to look at the proposed revisions that came in. We have prepared a motion for you to move this forward to the town council. With that motion, I will let you know that we still have a draft document. And as a department, Jay and I discussed this, and it would take us, we'll say 3 to 4 weeks, given existing workload, to make a final document available to carry over to town council. So even if you make this motion in a favorable manner this evening, we don't have that document with a staple in it to go tomorrow morning. That we still have acknowledgement pages, dates to change, signatory pages, as well as correcting a few grammar aspects to it. We did review the 2 sections associated with natural hazards and climate change, as well as the section associated with natural resources, open spaces, and we're prepared to make the grammatic changes. There was one section that there was a proposal with regards to changing the terminology from something that may be managing growth to something that is prohibiting growth. And we felt that would be substantial, so that we would recommend you stay with the original language in the document that you have been reviewing.
Okay. Member comments, Maria?
Only that, as this is transmitted, I'm not sure if, Amy thinks that this should be part of the motion or not, but, I think it's important that as this is received, by the council, they understand, particularly with regard to the future land use map, that these are suggestions from the board that would then need to be potentially followed up with appropriate changes when necessary.
Maria, I think that's a good suggestion. And I know staff has a memo to the council, and perhaps we can incorporate a brief sentence or two regarding next steps and a reference to the law mandating the zoning ordinance to be amended in conformance with the comp plan.
And remind me also, I think that my big note was, and I know that Kayla had provided us different documents, but and Amy's reminding me of a note to go to the town council. I think that, and we probably have it already drafted, but what does the letter to the town council say, so that we could review it and say, what I was struck by is, how many times that we've had public input. And I think it's important for them to have some key information so that they're not blindsided by somebody coming and saying, there was no public input. And for them to be able to have some of the key information, specifically like Jamie, you were pointing out, these are the new sections. These are the revised sections. These, just some key highlights for them so that they are aware of what the process has done. And again, I think that we have most of it.
Yeah, that's fine. And we, as staff just stated, it's going to take 3 or 4 weeks for them to finish the comp plan to present it to the council. So within that time at our next work session, whatever, we can review what we'd like to say in that letter.
I was just going to suggest that, Mr. Chairman, that we could have a draft memo prepared for you for the work session
And
with Amy's assistance.
That would be great.
that way we can move this item perhaps tonight and then do the letter at our next work session and then present it. Comments, any other comments from board members? Any comments from attendees in regards to the comp plan submission to the town council? Okay, I don't see any hands raised. Staff has prepared a motion. What's the board's pleasure?
I guess I'll make it. In accordance with the Rhode Island Comprehensive Planning and Land Use Act, RIGL, Title 45, Section 45-22.2, the South Kingstown Planning Board hereby accepts and approves the document entitled Town of South Kingstown Comprehensive Community Plan 2020. That acceptance and approval is made based upon the following findings of the Planning Board. 1, the plan update has been prepared in accordance with the requirements and standards set forth in the Rhode Island Comprehensive Planning Standards Manual, approved by the Rhode Island State Planning Council on January 14, 2016, revised June 14, 2018. The process for compiling, updating, and adopting the plan update has been characterized by an extensive public engagement process, including public workshops, surveys, interviews, numerous work sessions, and a formal public hearing as required by the Act before the South Kingstown Planning Board. The plan has been prepared as a standalone document which builds upon the positive planning legacy of the town of South Kingstown. The plan generally maintains the goal structure and policy environment detailed in the Town of South Kingstown Comprehensive Community Plan 2014. The plan includes themes associated with social resilience, sustainability, village-centered development, and healthy communities while recognizing shifting demographics. The plan contains elements associated with implementation and mitigation strategies to improve resilience to natural hazards, as well as factors affecting climate change. The plan seeks to establish a diverse, resilient, and environmentally conscious energy action plan in order to reduce environmental impacts and further reduce the financial costs associated with the production of energy, including the advancement of renewable energy systems. The plan recognizes South Kingstown as a community that is home to a vital, diverse population that needs a wide range of high-quality housing that is appropriately scaled throughout the community. In furtherance of and to bring to conclusion to the local process of update and revision of the South Kingstown Comprehensive Community Plan, the Planning Board further recommends that the Town Council adopt and approve the 2020 Comprehensive Plan as a town ordinance.
Maria's made a motion. Do I have a second?
I can second that.
Okay, Susan, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, Pam, will you please take the roll?
Sure, I'll start with myself. Pam Rubinoff, aye. Susan Axelrod,
Aye.
Joe Murphy,
Aye.
Maria Mack,
Aye.
Steve Tomasi,
Aye. So
passes.
it passes, and it's been a long time in the works. We've had 3 planning directors, I think, involved in this. And so,
And so at our next work session, we will have, we will work on developing the memo that goes to the town council, yes?
exactly.
My intent, Mr. Chairman, would have a draft available to you. We may be tight emailing out to you beforehand, but we'll try and get it in your hands before that work session.
Great.
Yeah, I think that's very important because it's unlikely that they're going to read all just under 400 pages of the document, and they will need the Reader's Digest version, I suppose.
Exactly.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. You're doing a great job.
Do we have a volunteer for the technical review meeting in November? Not sure. What's the date of that, Jay?
The normal schedule would put it on the holiday, the 11th. So the holiday, the 11th, you are currently bookended with a work session on the 10th and a special meeting on the 12th. The lesser of the 2 evils in my eyes would be Thursday, 12th.
Okay.
Funny that you put it that way.
I think you had that discussion last month, Maria.
Yes.
We have a volunteer?
Not
I'll
this
do it. I
month.
haven't done it in a while.
Yeah, I
Okay.
might do it next month.
You want a morning or afternoon, Joe?
I will do whatever the staff prefers. I think 9 o'clock in the morning is what works out for me. That's fine.
Okay. Amy, I had a question. I noticed the town council, most of their votes, they just say, anybody not in favor with this item, and then nobody objects and they pass it unanimously. Are we doing it the right way? Are we doing it the lengthy way?
I think you're both doing it the right way. This is Amy, legal counsel. We've advised that roll call votes be used because the experience for someone on the phone, right, who's not viewing, as you would be in person or even viewing on the app, people should know who's voting on what, and it certainly does get repetitive. My guess is the council doesn't do roll call votes simply because of the length of their meetings in recent months. Now, we have the same issue. I know you know that, but it's important that we create a record for our votes. I do think our vote should be by roll call, at least votes on, development applications for sure. So you might as well do all of them. And the only one I've said, well, I don't need a roll call on motion to adjourn.
Okay.
I
Anyone?
think that you just think that I'm doing a great job, Amy, so I appreciate that.
That is true. We all do.
Well,
Jay,
again,
what Thursday
Paul,
was that? Jay, what Thursday was that for the TRC?
The 12th.
Oh, thank you.
Paul, again, welcome to the planning board. We hope you get sworn in soon. And we'll see you at our next meeting. And any other comments from staff or members?
Just a question. Jamie, can you or one of the staff just send us a reminder of what we're going to be doing on those 2 days in November, what you anticipate? I'm realizing I was going to go on vacation that week, but I guess I'll be on. I can't miss both meetings, but
I believe the 11th was that the Matunic? hearing?
12th.
12th is
right.
The Thursday?
Yeah, 12th is the Matunic night. And we'll try and put something together what's anticipated for those meetings in advance of that.
yeah, because I realize I'm going to be on vacation, but I also realize
could
that maybe
That's the problem with Zoom. You can be on
Yes,
vacation and
You
still
can
be.
never be on vacation
Yeah.
fully, right?
I know. So I'm just wondering if I were to choose one of them to not be there for, I would want to make that appropriate given all the work that we've done on so many of these projects.
Yeah, we did decide to put that on a special night, Pam, because we expect a lengthy discussion period from the neighborhood.
Yeah, no, and I thought that was a great idea. So I'm just wondering, I just wanted to kind of think about it. If I were able to miss one, which one might I miss? So maybe it's that one because that's the beginning of that's kind of the beginning of a hearing that I could listen to afterwards.
Okay.
And it's also appreciated, Jay, that you continue to send us the TRC agendas. That way we kind of have a heads up on what's being discussed at the TRC. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I'd like to point out that Paul was instrumental in helping us get funding for that bike path we put in up to the Commons.
Okay.
He's not going
Wow.
to tell you about that, but I'll tell you.
I know, maybe, Paul, is it appropriate now, or that's not on our agenda for you to tell us a little bit about yourself, but we probably have to wait until a work session.
I
when
mean,
we're-
the council's already probably crucified him with his interview, so.
Oh, no, they were easy. They were very gentle. So and I just blathered on until they said, I'll just give him the job. So just to shut me up. So,
Have you walked the path, Paul?
I haven't been over there yet. And I'm afraid now that I'm on the planning board, I won't be able to be involved in any of those discussions at DEM. So.
Oh.
Great, maybe you could give us some insight on DEM. It's always one of those big questions that we have.
Well, I said last night in the interview, and I think, and I mentioned this to Maria in a phone call today. Nobody believes me when I say that the Division of Planning and Development has to get wetland permit from the folks downstairs when we want to build something new, and that sometimes they deny it. And people are like, no, that can't. Well, Brian knows. I mean, it's an absolute fact
Absolutely.
that, we have to fight for permits just like everybody else. And I frequently, people just laugh at me and say that's not true.
Well, I think that's always interesting because the last meeting that we had, we were talking about how the planning board doesn't have to give permit or doesn't have to give approval to some of the things that the town does. So there's an irony there where we're not even looking at the high school as a development plan review. So.
Well, not knowing for sure who's listening, I'll just say, if you look at what happened in Exeter, Richmond with the new Natural Resources Center, where we just said, hey, we're the state, we can do whatever we want. And as it turns out, we can't.
No.
Hard lesson learned there. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
Oh, great. Good to have you, Paul.
Thank you.
very good. So I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
One quick thing I just thought of, and this is probably something we may discuss at the special meeting on the 12th, just consideration of, in advance of maybe a site visit to that project at some point, since it seems to be of great interest to the community at large.
Okay.
But that would be kind of hard also if there's so many people. How are we going to manage a group more than 15, right?
Well, first of all, we'll have to get permission from the landowner.
Right.
And I think we could do it, if we have his permission, we could do it individually. Or if the board prefers, we could do it, yes, as a group, Maria, or yes, individually.
Or individual, I mean,
Oh.
in this day and age, probably individually is
Yeah.
good.
Individual,
The meeting we did on South Road, it was a little cumbersome because we had such a large group
It was.
that there were a lot of different conversations going on. And so, Amy,
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, this is Amy. I'm gonna have to think about that and discuss with staff. I do not, I want to avoid the individual site visits because as good as it is for COVID concerns, I don't want to open up any meetings issues, open meetings issues. So let me discuss that with staff about the appropriate way. I mean, you can also certainly request that the public participate via Zoom and make it clear that it will not, no discussion will be taking place. It will be just to view. So let me talk with staff about the best option for that.
yes, because I mean,
Good
if it
idea.
was a public meeting there with the neighbors in such a close proximity, it could be a problem.
it also gets further complicated with like the last one, that most recent one that we did do it on Zoom as well. And I walked around with my phone and as good intentions as we had, I don't know if there was a lot of value in it because there's a lot of walking. There's a lot of missed conversations and inaudible noises and poor quality video. And it really doesn't capture the essence, which we hoped. I mean, it was a good attempt. It checked the box, but in the end, I don't know if it was a really viable product.
What's the project?
Northwoods was the one I think Jay was referring to, in which he held his phone aloft for a good 2 hours.
No, I mean this new one that you're talking about.
With Tunic.
A comprehensive permit application on, in Matunic.
Hey,
So-
Jay, I'll send you, we just got something at the office, which is kind of like a little, what's it called, lavalier, but it tunes into somebody's cell phone.
A body cam?
What's that?
The body camera? No. No,
I'll send you something. It might be worth an investment if we're going to be doing these kinds of things.
I thought you were going to offer wearing a GoPro.
I could do that.
Jade, this is your opportunity to get a drone.
I was going to say Paul probably can help that best.
Paul's got a drone.
See?
Or Carol might want to get in on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we could talk Carol into a drone.
Absolutely.
I think Carol's busy.
A drone with a microphone.
Oh.
Okey doke.
Okay, we're gonna end this meeting before 9 o'clock if we get a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second from Pam. We had a unanimous vote by the smiles on the faces on the screen I'm looking at. So we'll see you at our next meeting. Thank you.
Bye-bye
Thank
now.
you.
Good night.
Thanks.
Steve, Jamie, you want to hold on for a minute?
Yeah.